Great. Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, October 9th at 5 p.m. and we are convening this meeting at the Life Saving Station in Dewey Beach, Delaware. I'm David Lyons, the chairman of the committee, and I'm calling to order this meeting for the Charter and Code Review Committee. This meeting is being convened in accordance with the rules of the state of Delaware and the town of Dewey Beach. This meeting is being streamed live via Zoom, and we are here in attendance at the Life Saving Station in Dewey Beach, Delaware. So we'll go ahead and start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Next, we'll go ahead and do a roll call of committee members. Marcia?
Present.
Dan Malley is not here. Jimmy O'Connor?
Present.
Elaine Bowe?
Present.
And myself, Dave Lyons. Town officials, we have Bill Zolper, and online, Commissioner Persinger.
Hello.
And the only other was Jim Deedy said he might be able to join later if you. So I believe that's it. Okay. So we have a quorum. We can conduct business. The first item would be to adopt today's agenda. I'd like to take a minute and just talk about agenda item 3. I'm going to suggest that this item came up last summer. There was a lot of misunderstanding and controversy around it. So my suggestion to the group is, and we didn't get a chance to get all the information out in advance so that we could have a meaningful conversation. So my suggestion to the group is going to be, let's table this item until the next meeting when we can have enough information to have a meaningful conversation.
And I make a motion to table. Second.
Second? Okay, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay, great. So with that done, can I get a motion to adopt the amended motion for the day?
I make a motion we adopt it.
All right, Jimmy, thank you. And Elaine, second?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Okay, we've got a working agenda. All right, so what I'd like to do is we'll open the public discussion for each agenda item as we consider it. I want to talk about each item in a chunk as we go. So first, let me start with, are there any general comments from the committee members that anybody would like to make? No?
You got minutes from
Thank you.
May 29th.
Where is that? Oh, I went right past it. All right, I'm sorry, I missed the next one. The next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of May 29th, 24th. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion.
And second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, Kate. What would I do without you? All right, now we're going to open the public discussion. We'll do it for each agenda item, but first I want to start with any general comments from the committee members? No? How about, let's start with any town officials. Bill?
No.
Commissioner Persinger? Any comments from the group? Okay. All right. So with that, let's go ahead and we'll turn to the first item on the amended agenda, which is to discuss and possibly vote to recommend town council amendments to section 71-7 of the code to suspend or limit construction activities during the summer season. At this point, I'll open the public discussion. Just let me provide a moment of background on this. So a neighbor of mine actually approached me and said this construction was, her renters had a problem. She found it very disturbing that all through the summer months there was construction going on. I'm in the same neighborhood. I understand her thoughts. To me, this is a big topic to consider as a group because it has a lot of impacts for the whole town and for everybody. I did do some research, and I think first, let me talk about what our current code is. I did do some research with our current code and then what Bethany has, and then I'd like to just kind of open it up. We'll see what the public has anything to say and then just get feedback from everybody here. So if I read the code correctly on Dewey, during the season, the work hours are 8 to 6, Monday to Friday, from May 14th to September 16th. I knew this was going to happen. You can also work on Saturdays. Bill, do I have that correct?
There's no work on Saturdays by contractors during the summer.
Right.
There's no work on Sundays by contractors.
Right, thank you. Thank you for the correction. And then in the off-season, you can work 8 to 6, Monday to Friday, and Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 6. The other aspect is that property owners performing construction activities which do not require the issuance and approval of building permits are exempt from Saturday, Sunday, and holiday prohibitions. So that's what our code is today.
Is it Sunday? Contractors can't work
No.
Sunday, right?
No,
Okay,
during the
that's
off-season, it's
Saturday.
just Saturday between the hours of 9 and 6.
Homeowners can, but
Yeah,
No.
homeowners can, subcontractors cannot.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I did look, Bethany's code is 8 to 5:30, Monday through Friday, year-round, and between October 1st and May 15th, between 8 and 4 o'clock. So they have, on Saturdays, 8 to 4 on Saturdays, so that's where they limit their code. So, I'll open it up to anybody who might have comments from the public. Does anybody have comments from the public they'd like to make? No? Okay, then let's go to the committee members here. Let's just go around and kind of, does anybody have any thoughts or comments? Marcia, I'm gonna ask you first because you've kind of got a lot of experience in this area.
yeah, okay. Well, I appreciate the sentiment on having our summers without construction noise. I think a couple things. I think we should think about maybe a possibility of a more limited time frame with limited hours. I think if you are saying you can't do construction over the summer, you're talking about people's livelihoods, and you're talking about starting a job and stopping it. Construction is generally a year, at least. And so there aren't going to be many companies that want to engage in something where they stop in June and have to pick it back up in August. Any builder has a schedule of 10 to 15 or more properties a year, and it's very well timed, it's very precise. So I think that would be almost impossible to do. I want to tell you, just to share from Indian Beach, they limit construction to September to June 30th. However, you have to remember in Indian Beach, you're only talking 6 blocks, and you're only talking probably 3 or 4 empty lots. So it's a whole lot easier to do that. Having done a number of houses, regardless, I am aware that there are small cottages around me, and at any time they can go under construction and have been part of that. I just think it's really difficult when you tell a builder you can't come for a week and they have to reorganize their entire schedule of subs. It could be 5, 10, 15 subs. So I think it's just something we kind of have to live with. And I think most of the other communities, except for Indian Beach, which, like I said, is only 6 blocks.
Yeah. Any
Totally
comment?
agree. I absolutely think that it would be detrimental to Dewey in so many ways. I had a painting project that started in April, and we're supposed to start before the season started, and it took, when it's rainy season, or in the fall, it's hurricane season, they can't just stop and start on a dime, and it's hard enough to get good contractors. So I think that we're talking not just building, we're talking just doing maintenance. So the rules that there were, is that they were only allowed to work from 9 to on Saturday, they weren't allowed to work on Sundays, and then not Saturdays, I believe, in high season. So they had to work from 9 to 12. A lot of times they didn't even work from 9 to 12 because they were off, but if they were really trying to get it done. So I think the way we have it is perfect, and I think any kind of annoyance is just the price of anywhere you live. It happens everywhere, people build things, and so I agree totally that it's fine, and I agree with everything you said.
Good. Jimmy?
I think it would be very hard to say no construction. It'd be impossible. If I bought a lot in May and wanted to start, and I couldn't start until, I think it would be impossible.
Right.
The only thing I would say is maybe do the 8 to 4, if anything at all, during the week.
During the season?
Yeah.
8 to 4 during the season would be the only suggestion you might consider?
Because at dinner time, you don't want to contractor banging on a house next to you. That's the only thing. And I don't have any skin in the game, so I'm not gonna be eating dinner at a neighbor's house. But I would just think, if I was at somebody's house, I wouldn't want a cement truck dumping cement while I'm eating dinner out on my deck.
Right,
And 8 to 4 seems reasonable during the season.
okay.
That's my only.
Bill, do you have any input?
So we issued 126 building permits from basically May 15th through September 15th. But that's not counting the permits that were issued before that, where the folks could continue to work to get their jobs done. That was just between those two dates. So there were a lot of permits issued, and we weren't able to break it down to like building a complete house or replacing an AC unit or something. But there were 126 issued during the season.
Yeah, okay, so there's a lot of building going on, so I think to make an impact would be a problem. Let me ask, Commissioner Persinger, did you have any comments? No? Okay.
I'm fine.
So I think we're all agreed that taking it totally off the table is
Off the table.
yeah, taking no construction during the season is not. I guess the only thing that's maybe worth is, do we want to make a recommendation about shortening the hours during the season? And that would be I think the only thing that maybe there might be some agreement on or some instance, but I'll just ask if, let me do this. Can I get a motion to reduce the hours during the season? Today it's 9 to 6, but to make it 9 to 5 during the season?
I think 9 to 5 would be fine.
I think that the construction guys do want to start early. I mean,
wanna
that's
start
pretty, yeah, I mean, that's their thing, getting in
Is
here
it
before
8
the
to
traffic.
6 in the season?
It's,
Or is it
it's
8
8
to
to
5?
6
8 to
during
6,
the season.
Eight to six.
It's 8 to 6. And
Okay.
the-
It's 8 to
and the
6.
contractors do like to start
Start
early.
early.
And because it's a summer, they do like to work late. And we end up having to come by when people complain about somebody working late and say, hey, you gotta stop your job at 6.
Right.
Right? They could work 2 more hours because of the daylight. but
Right.
And you do enforce it, they.
We try, we can't be everywhere all the time, and then
Right.
folks let us know if somebody's working late,
Right.
then we follow up with the contractor and let them know that your sub's still working after the hours.
Right.
What about 8 to 5 in the summer?
I mean, that's a compromise we could put forward to see if there's any interest in that. That helps. I mean,
I would vote for that.
I just think of the demand, the amount of people that have come asking, and you have a neighbor, and have you had a lot of people asking?
I've had one person complain to me about construction during the summer, one.
So I say, leave it as it is unless in future, if there's a groundswell, then I think you could revisit it. But I think that a temporary inconvenience is just the way of life. And if there's 2 people so far, that I don't think you make a big change for 2 people. And that's my opinion.
I didn't realize there was only one complaint, so I wouldn't,
okay.
That's all I've had.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
So-
change that down, I'm sorry.
So I think, let's do it this way. Could I get a motion to table this item? Elaine?
I have a motion to table the item.
All right. And can I get a second?
Table or leave as it is?
Well, if I table it, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. In other words, make no recommendation going forward.
I'll
We'll just
second.
leave it as is.
I'll second that too.
Okay? Everybody agree to table?
Table.
Table? All right. So, no change for now. So somebody brings it up again,
I didn't
something
realize-
else.
I didn't realize it was only one
Yeah,
person.
so no change on that item, okay? Thank you, everybody, for your input, that was great. So we'll close input on that one, we'll move to the next item, which is number 2, which is Chapter 65 Canopy/Tent Ordinance. And the item is discuss and possibly vote to recommend to Town Council amendments to Chapter 65 of the code, limiting the size of canopies permitted on the beach. And I believe this, once again, came up with, somebody mentioned to me on the street, I think it also came up in the forum, candidates forum this summer. Just a couple of things, just other information, is that Rehoboth and Bethany prohibit tents on the beach. Lewis requires a prior reservation and approval. Fenwick Island does allow tents on the beach, but there's specific regulations. Tents must be open at least 3 sides and can be no larger than 10 by 10 and 8 feet in height. Additionally, grounding lines and anchoring devices must be within the confines of the tent and secured to prevent uncontrolled movement. I'm not sure how that works, but that's what their code is. Other alternatives we could say is move tents further back, not limit the size, but move them further back off the water. Another thing that occurred to me is maybe do a survey of people in town to see what their feelings are on this item, whether or not it's a problem or not. So those are a couple of thoughts I had to just throw out there. Is there anybody on the public that has a comment? No? Okay.
You also have Jim on there. He doesn't want to make a comment, but if you need it, he's.
Okay, Jim's on now. All right.
Is it a concern? Like, is it a problem?
So let me ask this, because I'm going to ask Bill here, because I know Bill talks to Todd, and I guess I'd like to get your input, because I know you talked to Todd and this has come up before. So if you could just kind of brief us on what you think from the town or Todd's perspective, that'd be great.
Yeah, so Todd Fritchman's been the captain of the beach patrol here for 28 years, and this next year will be his 29th year. Some of the items that he's relayed to me about the canopies are zero safety hazard or problems with the canopies in the 28 years he's been here. There's no more of a safety hazard with them as they are with umbrellas. Zero complaints directly regarding the use and the application of these shade devices, other than 2 local individuals that have questioned why they were allowed on the use on the beach. The shade devices, according to Captain Fritchman, is a complete use and utilization of the full family unit, which is able to get underneath of it, everything from the elderly folks in the family unit to the infants that must have shade to protect them against the sun. And the shade devices are typically placed at the beach closest to the water's edge, then they move back further when the lifeguard comes on and makes them move back. And the other thing is, Dave Lynham is our current vendor on the beach. His umbrellas, if you rent 2 of those, they have a diameter of 6 feet. So if you rent 2 of them, that's 12 by 6. So that's a pretty big area also. I have gotten complaints about the canopies in the tents on the beach. We do not allow what I would call large tents that may have like a bathroom in them, or what you may see in an outdoor circus setting or something like that. We just don't allow those. Is there a problem with tents that have 4 sides that people can zipper and go inside and you can't see what they're doing there? That is a concern of mine as town manager. But as far as the canopies that are open on all sides, and according to Captain Fritchman, who's been here 28 years, it's not a safety concern.
Okay.
And I think Todd may have talked to you
I talked to
about it
Todd about
also.
it too, and I agree with, the family aspect of it. Being able to get the kids and the grandparents, I mean, this town's way more family oriented. The restaurants depend on, businesses depend on the difference, the families, everything else. I agree with Todd on it. I think we shouldn't have tents. I think the canopy's fine, but no tents. I don't know. That's
I agree
the only
with
thing I would say with
Right.
that.
Meaning no sides.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
like
no
the
sides.
picture, and I'm not
Right.
even a big fan of the string that goes out. But,
Yeah.
If it's kept within, I think it's fine.
So I guess, are there any, well, my first comment is, I would think, it's the first I heard of it, I would think it's something that, now that it's been brought up, we should be cognizant of this summer, next summer, just to be aware of what's it look like on any given day. Maybe Todd could take some pictures, maybe you could take some pictures. I know some beaches have banned them because they were getting so out of control. It doesn't sound like that's here. And the other thing is, I suppose if you set up a tent that was 12 by 20, that seems a bit absurd.
Yeah.
Maybe we just limit the size, if there's anything. I also think that a lot of beach communities, I know Delray does this, and some of the ones down in Florida, tents have to be back in the back corridor of the beach, because they also limit blocks of
Right.
visibility, not a beach umbrella visibility, but blocks. So, I mean, I'm feeling like we monitor it, we see, is it really a problem? Are there giant tents, and are there many?
I think there's an individual in town that's brought it up on Facebook a lot.
Oh, okay.
Whether or not he's got any backing, he's trying to stir the pot up on it. For whatever reason, I'm not really sure, but
Okay.
that's the only negative I've ever heard from him. Never anybody else.
I mean, people.
Looking at those two,
Yeah.
like, I would much rather have the one on the left than the one on the right.
Right.
Yeah,
Because I just think if kids are running on the beach, that string,
yeah.
to me, that's the only hazard. Other than that, I think they're fine.
People are upset that our folks that are renting down here, right? We're not many day trip people to the beach. We have people that rent for a week or a weekend, and they come down and they spend their money at the businesses and everything, and they're renting. And, you know, that's some revenue for the town also. They get up early and they go down early. When I mean early, like it's 7 in the morning, and they put their stuff down on the beach. And I get complaints about that all the time too, but I mean, there's really no way to tell somebody, hey, you can't put your stuff down here, or you can't put your stuff down here because you're not sitting under it, or only one person is sitting under it. It's really hard to enforce that. And of course, when the lifeguards come down and they pull their chair, if there's anybody in front of their chairs, they will move them back.
Right.
So we've received complaints about people setting up early, but, you know, to me, it's if you get up early, you get up front, and if you sleep in, then you don't get up,
Right.
then you don't get up front. So,
I go later in the day that way and get back up front when all those early people leave. That's what I do. So.
Yeah, I remember the
I
incident
could
that they
go to the
talked
beach.
about, the place that has the built-in pool on the water, and they actually had people that would set up their whole space in front of that location, and that was a problem. But my thought about this is, I trust Todd. If Todd is not complaining about this, if there's issues, if there's safety issues, he's gonna tell you. So I would go by the recommendation of Todd, and that's where I stand.
Okay. All right. You know, my only observation would be on on the right here, those big tents on the right that they show there. So I have seen some fairly large ones where they're maintained, and then there seems to be a long tail. You know, that's all I see. Go ahead.
That one picture, I think, just illustrates the anchors being within
Oh.
the confines of the tent. Obviously, here, the four-poster, you anchor those straight down. On the right, these are extended a number of feet
Right.
outwards.
Out from
So
that,
I think
yeah.
that's what the other, was it Bethany?
Yeah, that was the
Like
other
is referring to.
concern, right, yeah, that their comment was 10 by 10, 8 feet high, and the things that secure the tent need to be within that boundary. So that's the most you could be. It doesn't, I'm gonna summarize that, I don't hear a big movement here to make a change from anybody. I don't get a sense that there's any interest in real driving change. It's not a problem from the town's perspective, it's not a problem from Todd's perspective. So,
Todd would hear first.
right, so
And
if
if
it's, yeah,
I just want to give him the equipment to enforce if there is a problem. And if it is 10 by 10, that's what we have. And that's including, did you say, Kate, that's including they can't be stringing them out and it's all of a sudden, it has to be within the confines of,
that's not in our
Straight.
Well,
code.
these aren't that's not our.
That's
code.
Fenwick's code. Our
Oh.
code has no,
We don't have
our code is silent on tents on the beach.
oh,
there is no prohibition, except for Todd or I making, you know, somebody wanting to come down, as Marcia had said, setting up something that's like 12 by 20. We're not gonna allow that. We're just not gonna allow it.
do you need that in the code so that you can enforce it?
We probably need something on the size, but then if you put the exact size in there, now you're asking the lifeguards to get off the
Go around
stand with measuring and start to measure. So Rehoboth, they allow what they call baby tents, 4 by 4, around 4 by 4. And then they have individuals that walk the beach all day, and all they do is measure tents. And they walk around with measuring, and they measure, and they tell people, sorry, you have to take that off the beach. And if they don't, then they have the police come down and issue them a summons or a warning if they don't remove their tent off the beach.
That's great.
So at this point, it's too labor intensive.
No way.
And so if you may not have any ground to stand on to tell someone to take a tent down, but usually do the people just cooperate if you say you can't put that up?
Well, it would be up to Todd, but I would suggest to Todd that we say if it's a big tent, it's a safety hazard to have it on the beach. You can't see around it, you can't see through it, it's huge. The other thing that we've seen this summer that we haven't seen in the past are tent porta potties.
That's bizarre.
Are you saying you have seen them?
Yeah, 2 of them. Sometimes at night on the beach, when people have large gatherings at bonfires, they'll bring a porta potty tent, which could cause some issues on several different fronts, not cleaned up properly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that, there's nothing
Like
that.
that.
Kate, you're really good.
Oh, wow.
She's on it.
Like that.
So that is, there's nothing in our code that prohibits that. Well, I do
Well,
think,
porta potties, you have to get a permit, right?
So
But we don't,
This is a privacy tent.
yeah, we,
What you put in it is up to you. Just,
Yeah.
it's just the tent is intended as a quote-unquote privacy tent.
I just would think, yeah, that's interesting. Who knows what could happen in there? I would think if anything, our recommendation would be there are no tents with sides or that aren't open on all 4 sides, period. And I think if Todd has the authority to make a judgment call on a safety issue, then we're covered, right?
yeah, I mean, we discussed that, the mayor and I, about giving the lifeguards the ability, if they see an unsafe act, to act on it. And we've gone back and forth on that, but actually haven't passed anything. But a 4-sided tent, I don't think should be on the beach.
Right.
Could we could we simplify this to a recommendation for open on all sides?
Yeah, I think
We don't want to say 4-sided, because what if they bring a
Right.
tent with 6 sides?
Right. And at your point,
just say no tents, canopies are allowed. Canopy's just the top.
I think it's really good to have clarification. I know what you're saying, but we always get in a little bit of trouble that way. You can have a canopy, meaning you cannot have that has something over to the sky, but you cannot have any sides that close. Or, I mean, I know there are some where the flaps go in the back, and I just think it's better to keep it clean and no sides.
so I think what I'm hearing is the recommendation we'd like to make is we will remain silent on the size of the tents,
unless it's a safety hazard.
okay?
I gotta make a suggestion.
Yeah, hey, Jim.
Hi, sorry about that. I just want to make it clear, we have a definition for a tent. And it's a semi structure that is anchored in something, but if one side comes down, that's the definition of a tent. So I would quit using the term tent and just say a canopy is allowed, but no tents.
That's what
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Jim.
Jim, I'm sorry, did you say the tent is a canopy with no sides? Is that the
No,
definition?
no, what I'm saying
tent.
is a tent is something that has a cover that has one side down. That's a tent. If it just has one side, that's considered a tent by our definition. So if you go by just a canopy, if they put a side down, that converts it to a tent.
So are we saying no tents, but
No
canopies
tents
allowed?
allowed. If
Do we
that's
have a
what you want to do-
definition of a canopy in our code?
I don't know, I can look it up.
Because we might want to make the recommendation to add that.
That might be, but let me double check. While you all are discussing it, I'll look it up.
There is a definition there.
There is,
Yeah, there is.
so,
Detachable.
It says it's a detachable roof-like cover supported from the ground, deck or floor or walls of a building for protection from sun or weather.
So the 2 definitions that we currently have are, the way I read them, were made for businesses and people putting tents up in their backyards, not really on the beach.
So if we were to say, there's a section on what's allowed on the beach in the code, because I was looking at that, could we just say that only canopies are allowed on the beach? Would that be the recommendation?
I think that's a good recommendation, but I think we should just go ahead and tighten up the definition of a canopy, which just says another sentence that a canopy has no side walls, or something to that effect, no sides.
Once you put a side down, it's a tent, and we don't allow tents. So it's already in there, basically.
Yeah, I know, but we don't say it, I just feel like more clarity is better if it says that a canopy has no sidewalls.
So the recommendation I'm hearing here is that we allow canopies on the beach and that a canopy has no sidewalls.
Yeah, well, just to add what
Right.
Kate showed, we maybe just add one more sentence that canopies have no sidewalls.
I think it says detachable roof light from the ground, deck, or floor, or walls of a building for protection from sun or weather.
Because if you attach one to that definition, you can attach it to a wall of a building, so that seemingly to me could say, if I'm gonna just pick it apart, well, I am allowed to attach it to a wall, so I have a wall.
And
I
that's
do
a-
have
that's a
one
closed
size
side.
that is closed.
Well, that wouldn't be a wall by definition. That would, really, what you're saying is they're going to argue that I didn't put down a wall, I put down a piece of fabric.
Exactly. It has all sides.
Yes.
All sides are exposed to the open air or
That
the
would be better.
air elements, something. Just clarification.
Yep. Okay.
Do you need anything, Bill, about the site issue, about if it causes a hazard for the lifeguards, that they have the ability to tell them to take it down?
I think they do that now, the lifeguards, because they can tell them to move it back behind the lifeguard chair.
They
I
don't
think we
need-
have the ability
Yeah.
now.
Okay.
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 So I think the recommendation we have here is allow canopies on the beach, and a canopy has, and we want to add to the definition, a canopy has no sidewalls. That's our recommendation. So can I get a motion to make that recommendation?
I hate to be persnickety about this, but let's not just say wall. It has no sides. Because now we're going to go to the
You're right,
definition
you're
of a
right,
wall.
You're right, you're right.
So let's just,
No obstructions on the side, kind of, is it?
is open to the air on all sides with no, how would we call it?
I'm not that invested in it right now.
With no,
Would no
I would say.
come on.
obstruction, it's really
It
no
just has
obstruction,
a
right?
roof.
It's open
It
to the
has-
air with no obstructions.
Open to the air on all sides with no obstructions.
Okay. All right,
And I think that's just a sentence added.
that's fine. Can we just
Simple.
add it to the canopy section? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Is there a first for that? Thank you. That's a good change.
Sure.
Okay, Wayne? Second?
Second.
Marcia? Okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
Dave, could I ask a question?
Sure.
So where do you stand then with tents? Are they prohibited? Or
Yeah.
is that your intent?
Yes.
Yes.
Because you haven't, I don't think you've said that.
Isn't that in the code already, no tents?
I think we didn't say it because it's not an ordinance. I think we're just doing a clarification to the definitions. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, what we said is to add, I guess to me it would be two sections. In the section of the code that refers to beaches, into the beach, what's permitted, we'd probably want to say specifically, allow canopies on the beach. And then in the section that defines canopies, we would want to clearly state what a canopy on the beach is. That's what I'm suggesting now. Gary's point is, we haven't addressed tents, we haven't prohibited tents on the beach. And I guess that, we could add that to the recommendation. 'cause
I
think
agree, because when you're saying getting, persnickety, that if you don't say that, they'll say, it doesn't say anything about no
Right.
tents, yeah.
Yeah, we could say where we say, where we allow, we could say, in that beach section, we could say no tents are permitted, only canopies. We could add that to that section of the code. And then clearly define what a canopy is.
Yeah.
Commissioner Persinger, you think that covers it?
I do. The only other issue is the one I think that Bill Zolper raised about the notion of baby tents. I don't know if you have a small child that, needs to have that enclosure for a nap on the beach. I don't know if you want to allow that. That's just a question also.
They do. That is more common. And a lot of those baby tents are like a teepee kind of thing.
They're 4x4.
Yeah. And Bill, did we say that Rehoboth allows the
No.
4x4?
I believe it's 4x4 Rehoboth allows.
So I guess the only thing is, we put that in, is there something else then to enforce on the beach? I don't want to overcomplicate it, but if it helps enforcement, because we just said no tents on the beach, so I guess now if we have baby tents, we allow baby tents, then we probably need to revise the recommendation.
You'd have to actually say how big a baby tent is.
Mhm.
Then you have people going to measure things again, so you're getting back into that.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure Rehoboth is 4x4.
So the change could be allow canopies on the beach or a 4x4.
4x4, how tall is that? Like, is that
Yeah, that's the
about?
problem. So you have a 4x4 by how tall? And we need to have that,
Then we're
Yeah.
back to the porta potty.
yeah.
It's just a Google definition of a baby tent. Baby tents up to 36 high by 36 wide by 36 deep.
Yep,
Used
that's
to
what Rehoboth uses.
Used to shade infants and small children are permitted.
That sounds like a good definition.
And I think 36 seems
Yeah, 36,
really
I think-
reasonable.
3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet.
Is that what it is, Bill?
Yep.
Or, do they use the word
36,
baby tent, Bill?
They use the word baby tents up to 36 high, 36 wide, 36 deep may be used to shade infants and small children.
Okay. So then I'm gonna go back because I'll ask for a revised recommendation. So in the section of the code, and
I would think you'd need two definitions to define the canopy the way you want it. And then we would probably have to add a definition for baby tents or baby canopies.
okay,
And we can adopt what just Bill said, or the city of Rehoboth's.
right, and adopt the City of Rehoboth standard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so the only thing we would allow on the beach are canopies and baby tents, and we would define both of those in the code.
Right.
And of course, so for example, if somebody came to the town with an event permit and they asked about something and doing something, and the town approved that individual event for that day and that time, those things would be allowed. We do that now for things
Right.
on the beach for special occasions. But without that, we should go with the recommendations that you're making.
Okay. All right. So why don't I'll ask for a motion on the revised recommendation.
Motion to revise.
All right. And a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor? Aye? Okay.
Dave, I'm sorry to interject again, but there was another issue you raised with respect to the canopies, and that is the wires or, ropes that support it. And I think it's Fenwick that has some requirement that they have to be within the defined space of the canopy. So if it's a 10 by 4 or 10 by 6 canopy, it would have to be within that 10 by 6 space. Should that be something part of your recommendation? And let me ask, we'd have to deal with this, at the commissioner level too, but it's hard for me to imagine how you support it without the wires going out from the space of the tent. Structurally, I'm having trouble visualizing how that would work. But maybe somebody with an engineering background, it may be a little clearer.
So in canopies, you'll see in the center of the tent,
Right.
they'll run an anchor down the middle of the tent and run it to like a drywall bucket or some type of weight in the middle of the tent to help hold I shouldn't say tent, the canopy down,
Right.
right? And then on each 4 corners, they also have, sometimes they use spikes on an angle, or sometimes they'll use like a sandbag or bags they fill with water. So it can be done.
Okay,
So we haven't really defined the size of the canopy here. We didn't do that. So I guess what Commissioner Persinger is getting to is are we back to adding a size to the canopy, at least from the footing, from people? I think that's the issue, right? People have said in the commissioners meeting, people put these up and then not only is it just the size, but it's the amount of rope and the safety hazard of the rope extending out from the structure.
Well, I thought Bill said that hasn't been a big problem.
Todd hasn't had any any complaints about
So
it.
is this just another incidental, kind
Yeah.
of like
I-
testimony of two?
Yeah. Does anybody, I mean, I don't want to just disregard Commissioner's or Persinger's comment, but do you feel, I agree, I'm not sure that this is worth making a change out of at this point, but is anybody else? I mean, we'll give this recommendation. The commissioners, if they want to change our recommendation, add it, they can certainly do that.
And maybe let Todd have another look at it.
So if this does get to the commissioners, I spoke to Captain Fritchman, and I told him we probably want him there at that meeting to provide his expertise in what he's seen over the years.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, unless there's another objection, we'll just go with the recommendation we have that we've approved at this point. And if the commissioners want to revise it, we'll let them revise it. All right? Okay, so we'll close our discussion on that agenda item 2, and we will move on to the next one, which is discuss and possibly vote to recommend town council amendments to section 20 of the charter to increase the maximum penalty that may be levied by the alderman. Just a quick history, this came up this summer during the charter discussions about what the maximum penalty is that should be, today it's $1,000 is the maximum. I believe that is what is mandated by state code. I asked Fred to confirm it. I found something that was Title 11, Chapter 29, Section 5917. So I want to get here, but it says here for the first conviction, not less than $250, not more than $1,000. Second conviction, not less than $500, no more than $2,500. For all subsequent convictions of the same offense, not less than $1,000 or more than $5,000. That said, if you take a look at the information that Kate's group did, it's up on the, and what I gave you there is I would want to confirm that with Fred, but Kate was kind enough to provide this information about what other municipalities do in the area. So I think the two things kind of stuck out at me. So Laurel does have a $2,500 maximum for an issue by their charter. Bethany has a $5,000, but it's at the ordinance level. Most of the others are at the ordinance level, not necessarily charter. So I believe that we could recommend that the commissioners could levy stronger penalties by ordinance on specific issues, like trees, if that's what they so chose to do, or they could add additional penalties by ordinance for multiple offenses on something. But I think, if I read this correctly and I understand, is that everything else is kind of set by state standard. That's my best read. Commissioner Persinger, do you have any comment on that?
Yeah. We ran into this issue with the trees. Originally, when we wrote the ordinance, it was a $3,000 penalty for not following through if you were required to replace a tree. And then we realized that there was that limit of $1,000 in the charter. And my understanding from our council was that anybody who was faced with a $3,000 penalty or something larger than that could, in a sense, appeal that and have their penalty limited to the $1,000 that's in the charter, because that's the maximum penalty that the alderman can levy. So we worked around that by just issuing or saying that we would issue separate $1,000 fines if you do not comply with the requirements within the month. You get a separate fine, and you get a separate fine for each month that you fail to comply. That, in the view of our council, seemed to solve the issue with respect to the limit of $1,000. I think the question now is, and I'm not sure, you may be right that there is some limitation in state law where you really can't go above $1,000. It sounded like there was a secondary level where you could go up to $2,500. And that's something that, I guess, is it Bethany that has latched on to? I don't understand the distinction between levying a higher fine by ordinance, because as soon as you do that, it seems to me you bump into this issue with respect to what's in the charter as a limitation for the alderman. that you would have the same right of appeal to go back to, and in essence, have your fine limited just to $1,000. So I don't know if the by ordinance solves the issue. I mean, it sounds like we need to get definitive clarification from our council whether or not there is some limitation in state law that would prevent us from, in the charter, changing that limit of $1,000 for the alderman to something higher.
Yeah.
I think I would agree with Commissioner Persinger. If the charter is the ruling document, and I think we will just have a bunch of appeals, and it'll be knocked back down to 1,000. But I do think that we might make a recommendation that the commissioners look at changing that in the charter based on what the state law limits are, because, you know, we already have this problem with the trees. And honestly, to take down trees, again, we've talked about this before, $1,000, 1 month, 2 months means really nothing to someone building a $2 million house if they want a tree out. So I think it would be better if we could get the clarification and get it to a higher level, and then the alderman or ordinances can kick in under, say, the 2,500 or 5,000 or whatever the state limits. We could have something under that. So maybe that's our recommendation.
Yeah, I think the recommendation to raise the maximum, the charter specified maximum penalty to what is the maximum that allowed.
For the
that's allowed
state.
By the state,
Yeah, I totally agree.
right? I mean, that gives us enough to kind of move forward. And we really do need Fred's input to kind of lock it down, and I think the commissioners would want that anyway, so.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, Bill, besides the trees, is there some other way that you could use that tool in areas that you have problems in town? That, you know, these fines?
I think the biggest one is what we have come in to contact with over the last couple of years has been the trees.
Right. It seems to be the
And
one that.
I think Marcia's point, where if you're building $1 million home, what's a $1,000 fine?
Well, but it's not just $1,000 fine. If you don't comply with it, after 30 days, you get another $1,000
Right.
fine.
Yeah.
And for each successive 30-day period, you will get another $1,000 fine.
But my point is that you just paid the $1,000 when you get the fine, you pay it. If it was $3,000 or $5,000, maybe they would think twice before violating that,
Right.
not
Yeah,
replace
yeah,
that
because
tree.
I agree. I think you pay the $5,000 fine, you have 30 days to buy another tree and put it where you want. And I think people building a house that expensive that's what's happening.
Right. That's what I mean, Bill, is that what we're seeing is that they pay the fine and move on? I think they have to pay a fine until they replace the tree,
I mean, Jim,
That's
we've seen it, I think, once, Jim, this year. Is that correct?
We've had 2 fines
Okay.
so far this year, and one we put in for $3,000 because we thought that was a maximum fine. And that's when Fred, our town solicitor, told us, no, you're locked into one. They pay.
Where did Jim go? Jim?
Looks like he froze.
Okay.
Jim? Come in, Jim. Looks like he's gone.
Do you remember, Bill?
I don't remember the other one. I just know there was one.
Yeah, I know the one.
And we did do 3,000, and then
That I had heard.
their attorney contacted us, and then we talked to our attorney, and Fred Townsend said we could only do $1,000.
Right.
But was that using the tool
Hey, you want to build
you
a master
employed
house?
that Gary?
Good. There you go. Jim, you cut out for a minute.
I'm sorry. Okay. What I'm saying is, there are ways we can deal with it up front. Is if you want to build a massive house and you want to take down 20 trees, you know, and it's a sticking point, but we're going to be asking where you're going to plant those trees in the footprint of what you're taking out. So that's going to curb a lot of these homes just taking down trees. So right now, you know, I don't know if we should really increase the fine. That's my personal opinion. I think what we can do is 1,000, 1,000, and 1,000 as Commissioner Persinger suggested. And I think that maintains the integrity. And people are really trying to comply. I don't think people are trying to get out of it anything.
I just thought what Fred's point was, is that for the same crime, you can't keep doing it 1,000, 1,000, 1,000,
No.
but if it worked
You
out.
can-
Yeah, I think they can. You can do
You can do
subsequent
that.
payment, right? I think
Okay.
you can do subsequent. The issue is how much is the maximum you can levy? And our charter said 1,000. So the question was, should we take a look at, is it legal to increase the penalty in our charter?
No, I got that. I
That's
just thought that
really-
this loophole of like saying, oh, but for the same crime,
Right.
you're getting 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, when it says that because it's the same crime, you know? But if it's worked, it's worked.
Well, it kind of works in parking enforcement, but that's what we do.
I pulled it and I thought this was it, but I asked Fred to confirm what the state max was. I'm comfortable from the meeting here today, it's just making a recommendation is that the commissioners consider raising the maximum penalty to be what's allowable by state law and leave it there.
I am too,
And if
because you have it
it's-
in your toolbox.
Right. I mean, I think that gives them room to do that. If they choose not to, you know, as Jim kind of speaks to here, that's fine. I think we can just say, from our perspective, raise it to the maximum that you can. And it's a charter change. If it's a charter change, it still has to go back through, I think, the state legislature to be approved.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can safely say, make it the maximum, but it'll have to go back, and that'll take some time. So I think you need to work around while you get that approved anyway.
I agree.
Okay? So could I get a motion for that recommendation? Thank you, Elaine. Second?
Second.
Jimmy. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Okay. All right. That's the last of our official agenda items. Does anybody else online have any comments they'd like to make? No? Okay. Anybody here in the room? Any of my committee members? Anybody else like to make a change?
52 minutes, pretty good.
Okay, I'm doing better. All right. Just one other note I just want to make. We do have a couple of folks from town that have expressed an interest in joining the committee. So the commissioners are going to evaluate those this week. I'll hold the names so the commissioners go ahead and talk to them, but we have had some other interest for people to join us. We could use some additional voices, I think, at the table. So, okay. Let's see how that goes.
That's great.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
So at that point, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.